Hi everyone, welcome to Bello's Designs. My name is Catherine and today we're going to be making this card called Be in Love. Let's talk about the things we'll need to get started. For stamps, we are going to be using the red Berry Wreath, which is LAV 704, and I will only be using the smaller stamp from that set. We'll be using the berries from the Foliage Set, LAV 679. I've chosen 2 flowers from the Moss Flowers set, LAV 898. I'll be using the larger fern from the Woodland Fern set, LAV 729. Both Bumble and Hum from their set, LAV 892. And the Group of Hearts Mini, LAV 238. In addition to that, I'll be using a love sentiment that was in my stash, and I'm not sure that you'll be able to get that. I think that was a limited edition through another company, but feel free to use any sentiment that you have in your stash. For inks, we'll be using Versafine Clair Morning Mist, Glamorous, Green Grass, and Nocturne. And we'll be using 2 of our Elements inks by Lavinia. So I have Sundance and Confetti. I will also be using some Mica minerals. So I'll be using both the White Sparkle and the Crystal Gold. You will want to have a paintbrush on hand or a water blending pen. I'll also be using my fan brush and 2 number 9 blending brushes from Lavinia with my Elements inks, as well as a yellow watercolor pencil that will coordinate with my project. I'll be using a heart-shaped die from my collection, but you could use any stencil or even cut one out yourself, and then some pop dots to assemble our final card. I'll be using a piece of Multifarious Cardstock scrap to fussy cut my flowers, as well as a piece of 7x7 Multifarious Cardstock and an 8x8 card base for my final card. Let me pull this all together and we'll get started. The first thing we're going to do is trace our die or hand draw your heart to get the shape of our wreath. So I'm going to just trace that out using my yellow watercolor pencil because it will blend in with my background. Now I'm going to come back with my Sundance ink and blend in the middle of my wreath. The next thing I'm going to do is use the smaller stamp from my red berries wreath and just stamp that using the Morning Mist from Versafine Clair. So I'm going to start right at the top center of the wreath and go right around. All right, so I've stamped around the outside of my heart using the berries from the red berry wreath. The next thing I'm going to work on is creating just a little cluster to get ready for my flowers right here in this bottom left corner. So I'm going to take my fern stamp from the Woodland Fern set, and again, this is the larger of the stamps, and I'm going to just stamp a few of them using the grass green from Versafine Clair. So we'll just get ready to create that little floral cluster right there. And then one more here. All right, so that's all we need with that. The next thing I'm going to stamp is the red berries from the Foliage Set, and I'm going to do that using Glamorous. And again, we'll just create a small little cluster right here between our fern leaves. Now this doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to fussy cut some flowers to place on top of that. So if there's any imperfections, we don't have to worry about it. We're going to just cover those up. So I'll just add a few up here. And one more here. And I think we're good with that. All right, let's stamp Bumble and Hum right in the middle. And I'm going to do that using, I've put both of them on the stamp together just to make sure that they fit. And I'm going to stamp them using my Nocturne ink. Just give it a good press to make sure we get a nice image. Okay, and there we have it. All right, let's come back with our group of hearts and our Glamorous and just add a little love to the top of our bumblebees. And that looks like a good placement for them. Okay. Now I think it's a good time to come back in with our watercolor blending brush, and I'm going to use my watercolor pencil in yellow. So what I'm going to do is use an ink block just to add some water, make sure I have plenty of water and that my brush is wet. And we're just going to add a little bit of yellow to the inside of our bumblebees. Just to give them a little bit of depth. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I'll just clean that off a bit and put that pencil aside. Now I'm going to place this aside, and it's time to come in and fussy cut or stamp and then fussy cut my moss flowers. At this point, I'm going to come back and just stamp my moss flowers with my Glamorous ink, and we'll be doing that just on some scrap paper because we will be fussy cutting them. And I'm looking for 2 large flowers and 3 small ones. So I'm going to take the large one off my block and just use that space on the end and stamp 1 more smaller flower. There we are. Now I'm going to come back with my watercolor blending pen and my confetti ink, and I'm just going to paint in the flowers. Now that I've finished fussy cutting my florals, I had a helpful hint I wanted to share with you. If you are cutting and notice that you have a little bit of white around the outside, it's okay to just go back in with your paintbrush and add a little paint right to the edge so that the color is consistent throughout. But now that those are all cut out, I'm going to come back in with my Mica minerals that I have added some water to. And I'm going to start with the silver, and I'm just going to use the silver to add a little bit of sparkle to the inside of my blooms. So not a lot, just a little touch of it. We'll add a little shimmer and detail to your project. Okay, and we're going to set that aside to dry. And while those are drying, one thing that I noticed in my wreath is that I was thinking it could be a little bit thicker. So before I assemble everything together, I'm going to come back with my Berry Wreath and my Versafine Clair Morning Mist, and I'm just going to add another layer of the vine to the outside of the wreath. All right, I think that looks a little bit better, don't you? The next thing we're going to do is come back in with our Mica minerals, and I want to add some gold to the bees and a little splatter around the wreath. So once again, just picking that up with my brush, and I'm going to go in and just cover up where I painted it yellow and go over it with the gold, and that's going to give our finished card a nice shimmer. And then while we're at it, let's add a little bit of the silver just to their wings. Okay. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to use my fan brush to add some gold sparkle to the card. So we'll just pick up some of that gold with our fan brush, and make sure we're not going too heavy with that, and we'll just add it right to the card. And a little bit more. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how that came out. The next thing I'm going to do is add my sentiment to the lower right corner of my card, and I'm going to do that using my Glamorous ink so it is all cohesive and we get a nice finished look. And there we go. All right. At this point, my florals have had some time to dry, so they have a nice sparkly shimmer to them, and it's time to add them to our card. So I'm going to start with the smaller of the blossoms, and I'm going to put it together using my Sweet Petunia glue press. If I can get the lid off, I think it's unscrewed. I just needed to pull it. There we go. All right, so we'll just add a little dab of glue to each of these little flowers and put them right down on that cluster. One there. I'm going to add one more here. And then I think to give it a little bit of a lift, I'm going to use some foam dots on the back of my larger blooms just to stick them on and have them lifting up off of my card a bit. So we'll put a couple on the back of each of those. Right, and we'll put one here to cover up that center, and then one slightly off the side. I'm pretty happy with that placement and how that's coming out. I think we're just about ready to wrap up this card, and the last step is to adhere it to the card base. So once again, using my Sweet Petunia glue press, just right around the back. I like to go around the outside and add a little bit extra to the middle. And just center it right in the card. And there we have it, a quick and easy 8x8 Valentine card. I want to thank you for joining me today. And if you're not already a member of our Facebook groups, please consider joining us at Del Bello's Designs Lounge for all projects made with Lavinia Stamps, and Del Bello's a la carte for projects made using other lines that Del Bello's sells. Thanks for joining me today. See you soon.